Support for Lab Out Loud is provided by NSTA, the National Science Teaching Association. Find out more about what NSTA has to offer at nsta.org. You're listening to Lab Out Loud, Science for the Classroom and Beyond. And in this episode, we follow a teacher's journey as they go through some difficult situations to bring science to their students.
I had a couple students, but one in particular that said, "Are we going to be doing hands-on stuff this year?" And it broke my heart because it's like, I don't know. I don't know when we're going to be back in the building. I don't know anything. So, I mean, it kind of breaks your heart, for kids to ask, are we going to be doing hands-on things? Are we going to be doing labs? And to tell them, I don't know, but not this semester. Probably, I don't know about next semester, maybe.
That's up next on Lab Out Loud, but first, I'm your co-host, Dale Basler.
And I'm Brian Bartel.
And today we're going to start off by telling a little bit of a story. In August 10th, 2020, there was a derecho in part of Iowa and part of Illinois. Now, if you don't know what a derecho is, it's straight line winds. They come intermittently up to 100 to 130 miles per hour, sometimes in peaks of 140 miles per hour. Cedar Rapids, Iowa was one of the areas hit hardest by this storm. In the middle of all of this is schools starting up. And in the middle of all these schools starting up is our guest today, Mallory Wills. She was actually, during this derecho, driving to school for her first day. We learned about Mallory after reading about a Science for Society and the Public award.
That's right. So Society for Science and the Public normally has STEM research grants that teachers apply for, and they're designed to be used in the classroom. Of course, like everyone else, we've had to, teachers have had to change to accommodate science at home, and thankfully we've seen other places like Science for Society and the Public pivoting and changing their gears to accommodate learning at home as well. And so this year for their STEM research grants program, they've provided take-home kits for that need right there. And Mallory is one of the award winners. So she's going to tell us a little bit about the award first.
Okay, so this award is a little different this year. They've modified it for online learning. So what it was is you applied online and they selected 100 teachers from across the country to receive $1,000 in take-home science kits to support student research in the time of our pandemic and our online hybrid learning models.
All right, so these STEM research grants, in the past they were a little bit different. What made you look into it this year?
Well, this year it came to my attention because it was posted on the Iowa State Science Fair's webpage, and I came across it a couple weeks before it was due in August, and I thought that would be a great opportunity for my students because I am new to the district and I wanted to start a science research club, and we had a derecho this year that went through Cedar Rapids, basically
yes.
Over 100 per hour winds that came out of nowhere with very little warning. And, I mean, it was a very traumatic experience for myself and my students included. It was my first day in my district, and I was in a car driving with my new coworker to go get coffee, and on the way back, our car was hit by a tree.
Oh, wow.
Yes, we were able to still drive, get off the road, and kind of hide behind a building until it passed. But there was so much damage. There were probably more roofs with trees through them than roofs that did not have trees through them. The roof of the building was compromised and came off, and most people did not have power for a minimum of 5 days, and some of my students were without power for 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I imagine a lot of people around the U.S. don't know what a derecho is or its history, because it is rather rare, right?
Yes, it's nothing that any of us had ever heard of until, it went through, but it was just the weirdest experience. The tornado sirens went off, but when you looked outside, we're in Iowa, we know what it looks like when there's a tornado, and that's not what it looked like. And it was they just said straight line winds, and they picked up. Like even Coralville, which is just a little further south of Cedar Rapids, was not hit as badly as Cedar Rapids was. Like I said, the school building, the roof came off in a section. I actually drove by the school that day to go get my car, and it was just a big piece of twisted metal hung up against the side. So we were actually 100% online until December because we didn't have a building, and they did a really good job of getting the roof put back on. Our custodians did a great job of getting the standing water out in 2 days with no power. So it was an experience for sure.
Yeah. I'm sure it's not easy to talk about right away. I really appreciate you sharing with us.
Yep.
So you're one of the few schools or areas that they were shut down for not just pandemic reasons.
Right. I mean, the last school in our district that had the most severe damage just opened, I think it was last week. They just opened around January 18th-ish. And that was, they had significant damage. It was an experience, and you talk to the kids, and I'm glad that I had, everybody was okay. I think only about 2 people died, which is crazy considering it came out of nowhere. But it could have been a lot worse. But I listened to my students talk about their experiences, and at least I have, I went through the same experience that they did, but it's just.
So are you suggesting that this event spawned the idea for your research grant?
Well, yes, because after it happened, I was fortunate. Well, I lost my apartment, so the people I was staying with, they were fortunate enough to get their power turned on after about 5 days. So, we spent most of the day hauling debris. That's what everybody did for about 2 weeks. But since we have power back in the evenings, you just want to prepare for school. You want to look forward, and not knowing, for a while we didn't know when school was going to open up, what that was going to look like. But I'd wanted to start a science research club before that, and I'd had, the full support of the school behind doing that. And then after this happened, I wasn't even going to ask, because we have way bigger problems to deal with. So the grant came across my Facebook feed, and I thought, I've got the time, and I applied, and I'm like, it would be great to have something like this, because then it would basically take away any factor of cost for my students, which is a big deal, especially when now all of a sudden we've got damage everywhere, trees down everywhere. So how can you ask people, hey, I'd like you to do some science research. It might require you purchasing some equipment, So doing this grant and receiving it has been a blessing, because we've been able to, provide that opportunity and say, hey, I've got some equipment that you can use, you can take home. Just having that has been great.
Did you wrestle with, you kind of allude to this a little bit. Did you wrestle with how could we take on a project now when with so much going on, considering the circumstances?
I did, but, it's not a mandatory thing. So I was like, I'm just going to offer it up. I'm happy to meet with the kids. I haven't never seen actually any of my students, in person that have taken the kits. I've dropped things off in the office, and I've met with them virtually. But we started school 3 weeks late, and once things kind of settled out after that time, then it was a lot easier to say, hey, I have this opportunity. If you're interested, let me know. And I do have kids that did want to do something like this. So
sure. It's a little like the show must go on, right?
Yes. Before, I don't think we would have been able to do it without the grant. I just don't, because it just was a game changer. It really made it a lot easier to offer that.
Mallory, you mentioned that you're a fairly new teacher, correct?
Yes. So I just finished, at the end of the school year will be 2.5 years.
Well, congratulations. Those are some good milestones there. I'd like to applaud you. First of all, I think this this is definitely ambitious in a time where not only is your community fraught with a lot going on, and as well as a pandemic, if you've heard about that, and and as well as there's lots of stuff going on, and tackling online learning. I think for a lot of students and teachers, they were trying to sort out what are the basics that I need to do. How do I just get going with learning the basics here? But you're pushing forward with this research project here. Again, what made you think you're like, hey, we can do this?
At the beginning of the school year, we talked, you meet your kids. Like I said, we were 100% online, and you ask them if they have questions or what they'd like to see out of the class. And I had a couple students, but one in particular that said, are we going to be doing hands-on stuff this year? And it broke my heart because it's like, I don't know. I don't know when we're going to be back in the building. I don't know anything about what we're going to be doing this semester or next semester or how vaccinations or the pandemic's going to play out. But as a science teacher, that's one of the things in science is getting to be hands-on, is getting to do labs with your students. So, I mean, it kind of breaks your heart because for kids to ask, are we going to be doing hands-on things? Are we going to be doing labs? And to tell them, I don't know, but not this semester. Probably, I don't know about next semester. Maybe. It's,
yeah.
So to provide this opportunity, because I did reach out to those kids that said that, and I said, hey, you talked about wanting to do hands-on things. I don't think we're going to be able to do that as a class right now. But if you're really interested, I've got some kits that I got in, and you could do some of your own research, and I would help you with that, and we could, you could compete in the virtual science fairs this year if that's something that you're interested in. So
tell us about the kits.
So there's some different kits. We have a couple of different water testing kits with the testing strips, test for pH, nitrates. I have a team project of girls that used both of the kits, and their research centered around the derecho. They wanted to see if there had been any impact in the water.
Oh, I was going to ask that, if there are any derecho-related research.
Yes,
keep going. Sorry.
You're fine. So they did research on what it would look like if there was more foliage in the water, how would that affect the pH? The nitrates, what would they be looking for an increase in? So they went out and did that with some of the water testing kits. We got other kits as well. Some of them my students are not using this year, but it's nice to have those options that, you can use them next year as well with other students if they show an interest. And I have an Arduino student kit that is a coding kit that teaches the basics of programming, coding, electronics, and it has guidance through some simple tasks that kids can complete, and then they can apply it once they get that base knowledge and build upon it.
Mm-hmm. So I'm curious, what did they get the results for the water?
They did. So right now, since they started later because of school and everything, they only were able to test once, but they tested 5 times. So their numbers are pretty accurate. They are planning on continuing this into next year and taking some samples in the spring, some in the summer, some next fall, some next winter to really get.
That's right. They don't have any comparison otherwise.
Right. So they've got their data from their beginning, but they're still going to compete in the science fairs this year with what they have. And I think that is a wonderful experience for any kids, no matter what.
Awesome.
So, and then, like I said, the plan is to continue taking data through this next year to see what they find.
So, Mallory, were the kits predetermined, or did you have a little bit of choice in what you wanted to receive?
I had choice. They had a list, and you were basically like, here's $1,000, mark down what you want to spend it on.
Oh, and then you had like a little catalog of, what can I get?
Yes, they had a list. It was like shopping, but not with my money. It's great. So
Supermarket Sweep,
Yes.
the Science Teacher Edition.
What were some of the
Yes.
other items that you could have purchased just as a curiosity?
Well, I did get some other things. I got a Neuro Spiker box, and
What is
You're
that?
going to have to tell Dale what that is. He's physics and geology and...
Sounds intriguing. Or like a weapon.
So, like I said, that's another thing that none of my students chose to use this year, but it's really neat. It helps them study neuroscience, and it is from Backyard Brains.
Okay. So you're kind of giving them it's like the gift of choice here too. So, if you had a smaller list of resources in the kit, then it would kind of really drive. So this kind of let them broaden their questions.
Yes, it's very open-ended. There's nothing in there that's like, okay, well, this is it. This is what you have to do. Here's your steps. The kids have to come up with that on their own end. So everything that they had on the list was very open-ended and could be used for so many different things. They just have to kind of decide which route that they would like to take.
How much choice did you give to students to basically decide what they wanted to do?
I gave them the list of the things that I had, and I walked them through what they needed for a research plan. And I said, once you've completed your research plan through your procedure, then I will let you pick it up from the office, or I'll drop it off somewhere, whatever you need. But they could have whatever they wanted.
Okay. What are some of the other things you got in the kits? We interrupted you at Neuro Spiker Kit. Maybe
Yes.
That's true.
I apologize for that, but it was intriguing.
It sounded, it was like linguistically shiny. It distracted me.
I ordered 2 of them for that reason. But it's the Neuro Spiker box, and it comes with a kit to start learning about neuroscience. And from what I understand about it, like I said, haven't had a kid go through it yet. So you can plug it into your phone, and it will, measure the impulses that go, or pulses that go through it. And it's very interesting. So you basically put, to read through the instructions, you put a bug in ice water, and a certain kind of bug that you can pull its leg off of.
Aw.
But the leg grows back, and we're not killing the bug, so it's okay. And you can hook it up, and you can see how it twitches, or you can see the real-time electrical spikes in the live neurons of that bug or invertebrate.
Wow.
So it's neat. They have a whole TED Talk on it.
Okay.
So I pretty much lost all the kids at, okay, so you have to take a leg off of a bug, and they're all like...
Yeah, but I know there was a couple kids in your class who were like, oh, sign me up. Not quite yet, but we'll see.
Your students definitely had an opportunity to, develop research, become scientists, carry that out. Were there non-science class things that they learned from this, that they gained from this, particularly with what was all going on? Is there things that you want to talk about that helped them? I guess what I'm asking is, was the experience therapeutic for some students? Or am I reaching?
I don't know if it was therapeutic for them. Might be reaching a little bit.
Okay, that's fair. Okay. Sometimes I think having some normalcy or having a project, having something for them to focus on, then they're not focusing on,
right.
The worries and those kinds of things.
Yes, I think there was definitely some of that going on, because it is nice to have something to focus on. Like you said, something that's normal, provide a new experience for these kids, because none of my kids even knew that doing a science fair was really a thing, which is sad, because we have the regional fair that sends kids to the international fair, or it's a qualifying fair for the international fair, 5 minutes from the school.
Oh, wow.
So
I thought you were going to take the question in this direction, Dale, of were there other skills or soft skills that came along for the ride with doing research like this?
Yes, I would say, creating your own project, your own experiment, your own procedure, your own original research. That is the highest level of learning that you can possibly do. And then
we can say Bloom's taxonomy. I think that's that's
right,
appropriate
yes.
here.
Yes, it's the highest level of learning that you can do. And my students, like I said, they're going to compete in some science fairs, which are virtual, so they're a little different this year. But in a regular year and next year, hopefully, they will make a presentation board, and they'll take that to a fair, and they will discuss with judges. Judges will ask them questions, and they will, present their research to other people as well. So that's, being able to communicate your scientific research and why you think, your results are valid because of X, Y, and Z.
Sure.
Crazy amount of communication skills that expand
Absolutely.
far outside of the science classroom. And that's a life skill.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that the competition, because it's online this year, do you think that's going to be more opportunities for sharing their learning, or do you think that'll be less?
I think there will be more. So I've had kids from my last district compete in the past. And I know from talking to the teacher that's there now that there are very few of them that are doing it this year because it is a lot of work. I competed when I was younger. My sister's a senior in high school in a different district. She's competing. My brother competed. We all did. We're a science fair family.
I love that.
There's a lot of kids that are not doing it this year because it's a lot of work. To do something like this and do it well is a lot of work. And the incentive for that, the payoff, has always been there are trips to the International Fair. There are trips to BioGenius. And so with all of those being virtual this year, there's a little less incentive for high school students. But the money is still there. The scholarships are still there. So even though there's not trips, the scholarship money is there. So I think there will be more opportunities because I think there will be less kids competing this year.
I always am fascinated by thinking about what we've gone through in the last almost a year now. And, what kind of things have we been forced to do because we've been pushed into a virtual kind of environment? Are there things, do you think, that might stick once you're able to go back face to face?
I think I've had conversations with teachers, and a lot of them have said it would be crazy to think that things are just going to go back to the way that they were in all capacities, because I have students that are more successful doing online than they've ever been in a regular classroom. I have a lot of kids that are the opposite direction, and I have a bunch of kids that are just do well at both. But for the group of kids that have accommodations, and this is the best option for them. They love it. Other than the social aspect of it, the kids aren't too keen on that. But I don't know. I think some of this. Go ahead. Sorry.
I'm with you.
He's agreeing. I can hear him shaking his head.
I don't know, because it's the. Yeah, I was shaking my head. I'm fearful that we will snap right back to the way we were doing things,
and actually farther back,
and give up on some of the benefits of, like, we're doing a hybrid right now, but some of the benefits of the virtual. Yes, there were students that did succeed, did better during virtual. I hope we can hang on to that. I am a little worried that we might not, because I think there'll be pressures to go back to the normal. There'll be pressures to do things. I mean, let's face it. What's difficult right now is that we have these multiple modes of doing things. We're kind of running, dual streams of classrooms and things like that. So it's a little bit more challenging, but we are seeing some benefits of that. And I don't want the snap back to ignore that.
Yes, I agree. Like I said, there are kids that are doing better in a hybrid model or an online model than they've ever done in a regular classroom. And to not acknowledge that and implement some of those techniques is just, I don't know.
What's interesting is, you mentioned you wanted to start a science research club. And when I envision that, it sounds to me like it's an extracurricular, like after schools on Thursdays or something every week or something like that. And that tends to silo it in a time and a place that, really shouldn't be contained within a physical classroom all the time. I think that perhaps maybe I'm reaching again, but maybe perhaps this allowed students to expand their laboratory or environment and say, hey, what else can I test that's beyond the classroom walls?
Yes, and I've had kids that a lot of environmental projects usually expand outside of the classroom because there's only so much you can do in the classroom. Like, I can grow plants, I can grow algae, but I can't, I don't have a crake. So a lot of that does expand outside of the classroom naturally, but no,
Did you see some of those other topics expand outside of the classroom that normally would have been like only lab bench kind of worthy?
Honestly, no. I have a very small group, but I guess in the past when I have had students, a bigger group of students in a normal year, most of them did their research in my classroom. So I guess you could say that it could open up the thought of going outside and going other places.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what that... I'm hoping that going through this is going to give us some resilience to think that we can do this outside of the classroom in the future, not just a science club, research club, but other things as well, like taking... we've always talked about removing the time and the place of the classroom. Like, we've heard the, pushing out the walls of the classroom and expanding the world, but we never really got a chance to do that until we were forced into it. And so maybe this will make us think a little bit beyond those walls specifically.
You talked about that you saw that some students thrived in this environment. That sounds like something you've learned. Is there anything else that you've learned from this experience, be it the kits, the closing of school, all of that?
I would just say that I've learned that we are resilient. The kids are resilient. A lot of people are worried about the kids falling behind, and they will bounce back. We will get them to where they need to be. There is learning that is happening. It is taking place. I mean, we're we started even later because of the storm, and we will get there. We will get the kids there. But it's just resilient. Kids are resilient. Teachers are crazy, hardworking, and are willing to do just about anything for their kids. Which isn't new information, but it's just highlighted. It's just highlighted in the pandemic with rewriting, entire curriculums.
Yeah, I don't think it hurts to highlight that.
No.
Well, we wish you the best, Mallory, in finishing out the school year now that you've had a chance to actually meet your students face-to-face, and we wish you the best of luck in the future with the science fair projects that are already in motion, and hope that next year gets even bigger.
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for listening to this episode of Lab Out Loud. If you'd like to learn more about some of the things discussed in this episode or previous episodes, you can find show notes at our website, laboutloud.com. If you have a guest idea or a future topic that you'd like to see on Lab Out Loud, go to our contact page and send us a message. Also, you can subscribe to Lab Out Loud on your favorite podcasting app, such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, or wherever you like to find podcasts. While you're there, leave us a review and rating. Your input helps others find our show. Thanks again for listening.